Welcome to the Fretboard Journal podcast. I'm your host, Jason Verlinde. As always, that's John Rauhaus playing in the background. Today on the show, we have two special guests, not just one. I'm talking to Jayne Henderson, the acclaimed guitar and uke maker from North Carolina, as well as Sarah Weinberg, who happens to be Tel Aviv's lone female luthier. These two have been participating in a program called Women in Lutherie. It's an online community that fosters development amongst women in the world of guitars, violins, and other stringed instruments. And it allows folks like Sarah to come and shadow more established builders like Jayne at our 2024 Fretboard Summit in Chicago, which was a couple of weeks ago. We had Sarah and Jayne talk about this program and their hopes and goals for what they thought was going to happen during this 2-week period. Now, rather than share that session, I thought it would be more interesting to hear from Sarah and Jayne at the tail end of this whole 2-week period and hear about what they learned, how it went down, where they see women in Lutherie going, and how to make more women feel like this craft is approachable to them. We had a great talk, and added bonus, this whole conversation went down in the Rugby, Virginia workshop of Jayne's father, Jayne Henderson. If you've read the Fretboard Journal for a while or listened to our podcast or maybe read the book Clapton's Guitar, you probably all know about Jayne Henderson. Jayne is a second-generation guitar maker. Jayne is her father. And occasionally, while we were talking to Jayne and Sarah, Jayne popped his head in. It was a beautiful thing. I think if you go to our Instagram feed over the next couple of days, I might share an excerpt or two from Jayne and Jayne and Sarah at the workshop. It's a sight to behold. And regardless, I love this program. I'm curious to see where it goes. And I'm really glad that both Sarah and Jayne gave us their thoughts on what it means to be a woman building guitars, repairing guitars in 2024, and what we can do to make that less of a rarity. Now, I mentioned our 2024 Fretboard Summit. We've already got dates for our 2025 Fretboard Summit. It's August 21st to 23rd, 2025. If you go to fretboardsummit.org right now, you can get early bird ticket pricing for a 3-day pass. It's the lowest rate we're ever going to offer. And you can meet folks like Jayne and Sarah and Bob Taylor and the crew from Collings, as well as some of our favorite musicians that we've celebrated on this podcast and in our magazine. You can go online and see all the testimonials and YouTube videos taken from this year's Fretboard Summit if you want to get a sense of what we are talking about. It is a gathering like no other. It is a festival like no other. It is not a traditional guitar show by any stretch, and I know if you have enjoyed this podcast, you will absolutely have a great time. Our podcast, as always, is sponsored by a handful of sponsors that love what we're doing. Peghead Nation are offering you your first month free or $20 off of any annual subscription with the promo code Fretboard when you check out. Stringjoy Strings is offering you 10% off of your first order with the promo code Fretboard as well. They have mandolin strings now and banjo strings, believe it or not. Go to stringjoy.com. And then finally, our friends at Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar want you to know that in addition to having one of the coolest Instagram feeds around, they've also got one of the greatest showrooms around, and it's right here in Seattle, Washington. Go to Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar, check them out online, and if you ever need any instruments worked on or fixed, they've got like the craziest, most equipped full-service repair shop in pretty much our entire city. A ton of staff, some incredibly experienced guitar people as well as amp people, and it is a great resource for anyone in the Pacific Northwest. Those are our sponsors. Again, I'm talking to Jayne Henderson and Sarah Weinberg today, all about the Women in Lutherie program. I hope you enjoy it. I need to get people listening to this up to speed because I know what you guys sort of have been up to for the last couple of weeks, but I'm guessing a lot of people are hearing about this for the first time. I also should just mention that you guys are in one of the most legendary guitar making spots on earth, Jayne Henderson's shop in Rugby, Virginia right now. And so I just got to acknowledge that if we do post any video, because it's a pretty special place.
Also, yeah, my shop does not look this messy. It's currently not super nice, but it's not Wayne level.
Yeah. So Sarah Weinberg, Jayne Henderson, we hung out in Chicago at the Fretboard Summit 2 weeks ago, and you guys told me and everybody there about this really cool Women in Lutherie Fellowship program that you were both participating in. And I think it was like early days. So we talked about it, and maybe no one knew exactly what was going to happen when, you get one luthier from one side of the world coming to visit another one, and like how much learning goes on. What happens? And so
Yeah.
now we're at the tail end of this thing. Sarah Weinberg, you're based in Tel Aviv, which we could do a whole string of podcasts about. I want to hear all about what being a luthier over there is like. But why don't you tell us about how you guys came together through this program, and talk a little bit about it? Because it goes beyond guitars. There's banjos, there's violin makers, there's all sorts of folks in this.
Yeah. Right. So there's this, they have a website, a Facebook group, or not WhatsApp, Instagram, called, it's all Women in Lutherie.
I
And
think it's more a social support group than anything.
I think it has the potential to be a lot of things.
Yes.
But yes,
But right
probably
now-
at this point, that's like what it is. Although they did like a conference a few years ago, an online conference. It was during the pandemic. And I think that's how I first kind of got involved with Women in Lutherie, is that I just attended the online conference, and a number of different people did different lectures about different things or presentations or whatever it was. And it was over, I think, 2 days, and you could just kind of sign in whatever. And I was like, oh, wow, there's this whole group of people that have similar experiences to mine. And like, I didn't think that existed. So I was like really inspired and just wanted to be more involved. And then I found out that they had this fellowship program. And it's, they pair you with a mentor, and it's people from all over the world. And I mean, basically it's from May to August. There's a number of Zoom meetings with the whole cohort. And other than that, it's, and like, then you go to work with your mentor for around 2 weeks. Did I miss anything? Oh, and so, so I applied, and they paired me with Jayne, and I was like, cool.
And on the flip side, though, I had not heard of I was just part of it on Instagram because like Women in Lutherie, cool. I'm a woman. I like Lutherie. So, and then they asked me if I would be willing to mentor somebody. And I said, sure, because I was like, well, that'd be really nice. But I didn't really know much about the program at all. I went and applied to be a mentor because I was asked, and thought that was a really cool thing to do. So that is my side of it. I didn't, I feel sort of bad. I didn't do much research on it. I was like, oh yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was neat and was going to be helpful.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people in the group are violin family, bow makers. But there's a few of us who do guitar stuff.
Yeah. And for context, Jayne, we've featured you on the podcast. We've featured you in the magazine. You famously went to college for wanting to do something that had nothing to do with guitars, and then built a guitar
Correct.
alongside your dad, Jayne Henderson, to help pay off some debt. And now you've been sucked into the world of guitar making and ukes.
Yeah, that's true. I guess through very little effort on my part, or want to, I think most people come after this because they want to be a guitar, like, oh, I want to be a guitar builder. I have to seek it out. And I did not do that. I was like, well, this is a means to an end. And it turns out it's amazing. I just ended up loving it so much, and having a relationship with my dad while I was at it, that, that's what happened to me. But
Yeah.
I feel so lucky that I do get to be part of this world, and I get to know you more than that time I met you in my dining room, when I was 20.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Sarah, your English is impeccable because you're actually from Chicago, the greater Chicago area. How did you get into the world of guitar repair, guitar building, all of this stuff?
Yeah, I grew up in a house where like things were always being fixed, and a lot of woodworking was happening too. So I think that was maybe what oriented me to this like many, many years later. But long story short, I dropped out of grad school around 10 years ago, and just was looking to get back into playing music, doing music related things. enjoying life. And I wanted to like do something with my hands. And the idea just came to me one day. So then I started waitressing naturally. And I happened to meet somebody who's a guitar builder who his shop was right around the corner from the restaurant, and he builds beautiful classical and flamenco guitars. And over the course of probably up to a year, I think I finally wore him down and he agreed to teach me. So that's how it started. And I also worked for a guitar company, managing their sales and customer relations for about 3.5 years. And now I'm self-employed building, and I do a lot of repairs and setups as well.
Incredible. So again, like I said, like we could do a whole podcast on being a luthier in Tel Aviv, which I do need to hear about.
The only one luthier, actually. So,
Well, and what, without getting into global politics and religion and everything, like what is the guitar scene in Tel Aviv like? What is the typical day for the one luthier of Tel Aviv?
no, one woman luthier. There's
The
a
one
lot.
woman luthier, yeah.
It's like a surprisingly saturated field, actually, which is, but everybody seems to have work. So yeah, there's a lot of guitar players, a lot of people who also have guitars and don't necessarily play them, but then they found them in the attic and they want to fix them and things like that. Yeah, a lot of musicians too.
And are there certain brands that are more prevalent over there that maybe weren't in Chicago or the US?
Question. Yeah, there's actually like less variety a little bit because it just depends on what store is importing what brands.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'll see. I guess I sometimes work at a store that sells only electric guitars, and they have like Reverend and Duesenberg that I don't see so much over here. I guess it depends on the store you're at.
Yeah. And are you building too, or is it mostly repairs over there?
Building. I have 2 custom orders right now that I'm working on. One is a bass shaped like an avocado.
Okay.
But like Mustang style, short scale. And yeah, that's been an interesting project, not product. And yeah, another electric guitar, but I hope to focus more on acoustic instruments going forward.
Well, maybe that's a perfect segue to what was the last 2 weeks like? I mean, the internet brought you together. You didn't really know each other before this. When I saw you guys in Chicago, I think it was probably early in your fellowship, whatever, tenure. How have you filled your days? What have you been doing?
Well, we set out to, so I was just asking, I wanted to ask Sarah what, it's like, what do you want to get from this? You know, like, I don't know what to give if I don't, know what you want. So, what she said she really wanted was to learn the process. Like, how do I get from A to Z with a finished instrument? And so I figured if we could build tenor or soprano ukuleles together, and I could say, okay, here's how I do each step. And it's a small instrument. It's a little quicker, it goes a little bit easier because it's less materials, and it just seemed like a good fit to get that process. And I don't know, I guess you can weigh in on if we did okay.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's not all about, and we kind of said at the beginning, okay, we're going to try and build them start to finish, and okay, we may not totally complete that project, but we'll start. And you got further than me. I'm slow, but yeah, I think it's been really good. But also, in addition, like, there's so much, I think, beyond just the concrete steps of it's also just working together and just seeing Jayne's shop and the setup and what's it like, working with having a 4-year-old running around too. And also meeting some other luthiers in the area and being here.
And being able to meet everyone at the
at the Fretboard Summit. That was awesome. And everyone was so nice and so supportive. And it's just nice to see that people really want to promote women in Lutherie. They want to be allies. They want to, boost us up and help push us forward, which is really great to hear. And we were talking about some more stuff yesterday, just the added value of just being in this in this place. In
Yeah,
this environment.
I don't think it necessarily, because I was yesterday feeling a little, I was like, have I done enough? Have I taught you anything? Like,
Yes.
but and I wanted to, like, yeah, did I do what we were hoping to accomplish? And what we were saying is like, yeah, we will not make it to the final. We both have matching ukuleles, but we did. We got an amazing journey out of it, and it was the path that we took to get to each step. And I think that part of it is invaluable, I think, to both of us. I'm learning how to teach people, because I thought when I was learning from my dad, I thought, oh my God, like he just says, well, do this, and doesn't tell me why specifically. It's kind of annoying because I'd like to know why. When I'm a teacher, and then I'm like, no, just do it. Cause that's why, like, cause this is right. No, just do it. Like, and it's difficult to explain, okay, here is why we take this step and here's why, or like, and why we strive for perfection, but maybe back it down a couple steps so that we could get it done.
Right. I have that problem, but I'm learning, and also just being in an environment that's not super stressful or not oppressive.
Oh yeah, you did say that.
It's like,
You said I was nice.
a very supportive learning environment.
Yeah, I mean, is there a sense of, I saw the photo on Instagram of you hanging out with Judson and all the luthiers of Asheville, where you're based, Jayne. Like, is there any sort of sense of Lutherie community in Tel Aviv?
A bit. Yeah. I mean, I work with somebody who's become a good friend, and we help each other with stuff all the time. And I think, yeah, there's like, everybody knows everybody kind of.
But I think that's something that what we were talking about. One of the things is with this social network that the Women in Lutherie is, I think there's an opportunity like what my friend Kyle did with me, Judd, and everyone, all of the luthiers in Asheville. He's like, hey, I'm based around you. Would you like to go get a beer one day? And I think there's an opportunity for Sarah to start, like, I think we do need more local, like, it's so cool that this is such a global thing. But if we, the same as like the striving for perfection, scooting it back a couple steps, but like, let's lower the scope and maybe is there another woman or two locally that would love to hang out and talk guitars with you? I mean, I feel like there's an option for that. And I'm thankful that I do have a core group of like, I don't know, similarly aged people who don't treat me like the old white guys, who oftentimes don't really trust me or trust my judgment or trust what I have to say. They're like, no, let me tell you how it is. And when Kyle was like, do you want to hang out? I said no at first, like, no, thanks. I have no interest in that. But he was like, no, I swear we're nice. Like, okay. And it turns out like, I'm so lucky to have that, because and it's now I'm understanding and realizing more that that's having an environment that's welcoming, not just like, oh, you're allowed to be here, because I'm allowed to be in my dad's shop, but it never feels, other than Wayne, like all those guys on Tuesdays, like they're nice, but I'm not a welcomed part of it. Like, what do you think? Like that. So I think having that net of support is really makes you want to fly better. It makes you want to take those opportunities, like to leap when you might not have the right answer, but hey, what do you think about this or that? And not have the stigma of like, oh, well, you're definitely wrong, like overlying so that you just feel free to do it. And I didn't even think that, it's like, I love to welcome people and I love to hear new ideas. So when Sarah, is like, oh, thanks for being nice and like letting me ask questions, work the way I feel comfortable working, and not being like, that's wrong, then just we're throwing it in, like, she's had other learning situations that I'm like, what?
But yeah, and it's kind of like what we were talking about actually in our talk. It's that it's not just oh, you're wrong, but it's you're wrong and therefore you don't belong here. Like that there's this baseline, there's not necessarily the baseline assumption that we do, or historically there hasn't been, right? Because it's still kind of a boys' club. Let's just, be honest about that.
Yeah.
The guitar world. And I think that goes the same for guitar players as well. Even after Fender did that study that, 50% of people who buy guitars are women these days. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. I don't remember if that's exactly accurate, but yeah, I mean, I've had customers who have sought out a woman who could do a setup for them because whoever it was wasn't taking them seriously or wasn't explaining because they didn't think that they would want to know, or they didn't think that, she understands her instrument.
Or wants to.
Right. And actually, like, yeah, some of them have become friends. So it is kind of cool. And like a few weeks ago, I was in Mexico, and I posted in the Women in Lutherie group. I was like, oh, is anybody here in Mexico City? And a few of them got back to me and we all met up, and actually, like, I bought some materials that I used for this ukulele, and it was right before I came to Chicago and then came to Asheville. So it's
cool.
kind of been this whole, really cool journey of like, and I would never have met them without this group. And that's why I just think there's so much potential here. It's right, both globally and locally.
I think having people who are willing to support you either way,
Huge.
Just a support, not someone who's going to compete, but be totally willing to support. Like, I do feel extremely lucky to have my Lavels, as I call them, but my luthiers of Asheville. They're lovely, and not all of them build. Logan is, Dream Guitars, and we just have a lot of different. I mean, I don't know. You don't even have to build a guitar. Just come be my friend. Just be supportive. It's fine. So.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of. I mean, at least my little facet of, I think, like the Fretboard Summit, like, was a super supportive community, and everybody seemed really, I mean, it felt like a giant love fest, honestly, for 3 days.
Yeah, I noticed it. I don't know. And I'm not sure if it was a shift because of others or a shift because of my comfort level, but I also felt maybe because I've met more people, but I saw people I've met before or who knew who I was and wanted to say hi. I don't know. I loved that. I loved that everyone was so welcoming, kind, supportive, happy to see me in general. I'm just like, what? You know who I am? What? That's weird, but okay. But it was so nice that people were interested in what we had to say, wanted to support us, wanted to come to filled up that little room. Like, that was amazing.
Yeah. And then came up just afterwards and just were so supportive and so nice. And like, and it was just really cool meeting new people as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sarah's got a whole, you're a trampoline. She's going to.
That's right. I'm going
more
on
things.
Mini luthier tour after this. So.
Wow. Okay. Where are you going?
Well, on Monday, I'm going to go visit Martin, and then I'm going to New York, so I'm going to meet up with some of the Luth group people as well.
Perfect.
And then, continue on. Maybe, who knows? I don't know.
I'm thinking about, there aren't a lot of women in the world of guitar making, and hopefully that will change. Jayne, you've gotten a fair amount of press, both in my magazine and other magazines. Does getting written about, does getting talked about, mentioned on podcasts, like, are you hearing from young women who are like, show me the way?
Sometimes, not as much as I wish, but I do, when I do my live Facebook thing, where on Tuesday nights I sit and work and tune in live so people can ask me questions. A lot of grandfathers watch with their granddaughters, and that makes me so happy. And then, and I had a couple, like young, I'm just, I'm secretly setting the groundwork that, so maybe in 10 years, but right now I haven't really had any women come say, hey, I have to build, I feel a calling. I have to be a builder. I have to, how do I do that? I've had a couple, but I have to figure out how I can share my time. My dad, or as everyone knows, he's so willing to share his knowledge and his time with everyone. And I have a kid, so I sort of have to work too. I have to support that, but I want to pay not just his legacy of building a really cool instrument, but also what he's built and what he's taught me out of kindness, sharing my time and my knowledge. And so, yeah, I would love it if anybody, would want to. But I just wonder could I teach a class on Zoom, or could I teach where you meet people in their spaces? I thought about that during COVID. It was could I teach an inlay class where we're just kind of sitting around
Ooh, sure.
I've got ideas, but it's the women in climbing, when I used to teach climbing classes, the women classes were so energizing and uplifting. And I think it's the exact same thing, where if you take away a perceived or real judgment, I don't know, but if there's just women there, it changes things somehow. So it's if I could encourage just women, or a women ukulele building class, yeah, I'd do that. I'd be so thrilled if I could figure out, we could probably, do it with Catherine, she's heads up the Henderson School in Marion, Virginia. It's a school of traditional arts, and she's they've got a shop there. Maybe we'll work on it.
Jayne, when you were talking about those Facebook live sessions you do, it just dawned on me, for women and for anyone who wants to get into lutherie, it sort of demystifies the world of high-end guitar making, and just shows that, you at least are approachable and willing to field questions. And I have to think that over the long term, that is going to inspire a lot of people.
I think so. I get so many people say they love watching them. I think a lot of it is they're it's so kind of you, or that's a big deal that you welcome people in. Really? I didn't think of it that way. I just thought of it as I like friends, and I love it when people ask me things, because I get really excited if I know the answer. And these days I do, a lot of it is just to sort of make myself be sure that I know what I'm talking about. But it really brings me so much joy to know that people are willing, that they're willing to hear me and hear the things I have to say. I'm more than happy to share that. Rasmus and I, we're friends now. He sends me, it's what do you think of this? I'm it looks great. I'm so proud of him. It's so cool.
Something that we had started doing before we met in person was that we were talking on an almost weekly basis,
every
just
Thursday.
Video, I would be in the shop, and Jayne
at 7 p.m.
That's right. And Jayne would be in her shop at 11 a.m. or whatever.
Yep.
And just kind of she'd be what are you working on? And, sometimes
we just chat.
Yeah. And so one thing that we were saying yesterday is oh, I'm kind of glad that we didn't finish this project so that we can keep working on it in our weekly chats.
We'll have more
eventually
business.
We'll follow up, and we'll send you pictures of the finished ukes.
I love that.
For sure. But yeah, I love the power of, there's one really big positive of having fast internet where we can connect with each other across the globe and learn things, but it's been really, I've enjoyed, my Thursday mornings it's been really fun.
Yeah.
Because it's we commiserate on issues sometimes when it's oh, look what this guy did, oh, he said this, but then it's oh, I've been there, it's nice to have the support, but also it's just nice to have the company. And especially if she has a question, or she usually does repair stuff, which I'm sure I'll have to ask her, because I don't do much repair. I'll be well, what do I do?
Sure.
But, I think when you think about a mentorship, you think I'm the one supposed to teach, she's the one supposed to learn, but that's incorrect. Obviously, I'm learning too. I'm learning so much. And she's teaching a lot. So it's mutually beneficial, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's really cool. Did she stay with you, or Sarah? Did you try to have some separation of church and state here?
Offer. Yes, that would have been a lot though.
Yeah, that would
For
have
2 weeks to stay. I think it's a lot to stay with somebody for 2 weeks.
for sure.
No, I got really lucky, and my aunt had some friends that she knew from college actually, who had other friends who were going out of town, and they just let me use their house for 2 weeks in Asheville.
That's
So
awesome.
shout
Yeah.
out to Holly and Terry because they were very generous in giving me their house.
She did fine for lunch and dinner most
That's
days
true.
because
Jayne fed me so well. Oh my God.
I just love cooking
Wow.
so much.
That's awesome. So Sarah, when you go back home, what is your shop like? Are you going to be able to just hit the ground running and finish this uke off?
Yeah, I mean, I have some repairs waiting for me, so I got to get to those first. And I have this avocado base that I'm building. So, but I think, yeah, once a week I'm gonna call Jayne up and we're gonna keep working on these. But yeah, that's my plan. Basically, just hit the ground running, get back to work, and focus mostly on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for, you guys both kind of came into the world of guitar repair and guitar making from very different ways, but you found it. Like for women who want to get into the world of lutherie, maybe this is a loaded question, but would you recommend that they find an individual to reach out to or go to one of these traditional lutherie schools? Like, do you have any thoughts on like what's the most approachable way for someone to get their sawdust in their hands?
I have many
That's
thoughts.
an excellent question. It's such a good question. I feel like in the right, if they found the right program, maybe, but I mean, yeah, I don't really have a great answer. It's like, I want to do it. Like, come to me, but it's like, what do I have time? But I need to think on it. So you take this one.
I mean, I would say if you can find somebody who will teach you one-on-one, do that. But also like explore a bit. If you're thinking of going to a Lutherie school, go visit first. And also talk to people who've been there, like not numerous people. Like, I think like explore the options, find somebody who really wants to teach.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might be somebody who like is further along maybe in their career, like and they're like not maybe building so much anymore, and then wants to impart their knowledge. And as a woman, right, find somebody who just treats you like a human.
Awesome.
Like a regular human.
I have one more thing. Oh, my dad's going to play show and tell with you.
Oh.
But one more thing before he does that is, I was thinking, so another option are these, at the Henderson School in Marion, again, not to bring it up again, but there are these week-long programs that sort of run you through the idea, you don't learn everything, but it's just a week-long thing and you get the gist. And that way, I think those are a great way to start, because if you really feel strong about it, if you feel like, okay, this is a thing I really want to do, I think that because then you can see the steps, you can understand more of the tools you'd need, but you're not invested for like years.
Totally. Like, yeah, do different workshops and different courses. I did a number of different ones, and from each one I learned something else that I use. And right, that's the downside, I guess, to learning maybe only at one place or from one person. But yeah, especially if you're going to do repairs, a lot of that knowledge comes from just on the job.
Just doing it.
Doing it or working with somebody who really knows what they're doing. But yeah, I would say definitely like don't just jump at the first opportunity that comes along, and also remember that just because you found one opportunity doesn't mean it's going to be the only one.
Yeah, if it doesn't work out as seamlessly as you would hope, or if it doesn't fit, that doesn't mean you don't fit.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah.
nice.
And I'm guessing, don't be afraid to reach out to folks like yourself and DM and say, am I going down the right path?
Right.
Absolutely.
I'm happy
Anyone
to give,
yeah.
if I can give any advice, I can't give my time freely all the time, but I wish I would if I could. But if people have specific questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, especially on Tuesday nights,
Yeah.
but
Or if you ever do a daytime one again, maybe
Yeah,
I'll
I
join
need to-
in
I
and we
need-
could do it
yeah.
together or something.
yeah, I need to start doing
Next Labor Day.
Yeah.
Sarah, I know you're going to go see Martin. I know you're going to like go visit some more people before you go back home, but like, what sort of impact does this trip have on you? Like, does it make you want to move back here and be a bigger part of be a part of a bigger Lutherie community, or create that in Tel Aviv, or like, what are you thinking right now?
Oh, wow. Those are some big questions. Yeah, definitely thinking about lots of things. Thinking about, more learning opportunities or just opportunities to like maybe, come spend a certain amount of time somewhere and build an instrument. Although, since I'm slow, it might have to be more than I think. But it does make me want to focus more on acoustic guitar building and getting really good at that and just practicing more on that. I think also, this whole experience, which being at the summit was such a great start to that. I'm not just saying that just because, we're talking to you, but, like that there is such a great community here. And everyone's so nice and supportive and, there's definitely some thoughts, and I'm, kind of at this point open to opportunities that might come my way, and we'll see what those might be.
I love it. Well, folks should follow you both on Instagram. It's what _ Sarah _ doing.
Yeah.
All right. I'll include a link so we don't have to,
Okay,
nobody
yes,
has to
okay.
jot that down. And I'll include yours, Jayne, and they should be following you on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
EJ Henderson
EJ Henderson Guitars. I would prefer Instagram. I don't like to Facebook, but I must because most of my folks they still like it. So
My professional Facebook page is in Hebrew because it rhymes. So
Amazing. And thank you both again for coming, making the trek to Chicago and telling us about this. It feels like, I know this is early days maybe for this Instagram group, the Women in Lutherie one, but it sounds like it has like a ton of potential to make a really cool impact.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Jason, thank you for putting us on the schedule. Like that's big, and that I think like, right, we couldn't have had the response that we got to our talk without having the talk be part of the summit.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right, that was my conversation with Jayne Henderson and Sarah Weinberg. I had a blast meeting Sarah at the Fretboard Summit. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I will include links to the Women in Lutherie program for anyone out there. And of course, if you're listening to this and you want advice, I think both Sarah and Jayne would welcome any DMs if anybody out there wants to hit them up for any questions about this world of guitars and guitar repair and how to get into it. If you like the podcast, please leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, and thanks so much for tuning in.